To this now, South Africa's ambassador to France, Nathi Mthethwa, has been found dead in Paris. The 58-year-old diplomat was discovered outside the Hyatt Hotel in one of the districts there earlier today. French media reporting that he fell from the 22nd floor. Those, of course, are unverified reports. Mthethwa had been reported missing on Monday. Authorities are still investigating the circumstances surrounding his death. Nathi Mthethwa also serving as Minister of Arts and Culture before his appointment as ambassador last year. All right, let's get some reaction now and tributes from some of his fellow comrades. And I speak now to Matthew Parks, the coordinator of COSATU in Parliament. Mr. Parks, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. This must come as a shock, not only to COSATU, but the entire ANC-led alliance.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us. It's obviously very sad news. Nathi Mthethwa was still very young, albeit 58. He had a long history, despite his relative youth, in the ANC. I'd been a member of Parliament since 2002. I first got to know him when he was in the whip for the ANC in the Minerals and Resources Committee in Portfolio Committee in Parliament, dealing with quite complex legislation at that time. And I found him to be very much a thoughtful, very intelligent, very articulate, hardworking young MP at that stage. I think it's also quite tragic that how he's reported to have passed away, quite a painful death. Obviously, we must still give space for the French authorities to determine what happened and so forth. But nonetheless, there's also very tragic news for his family. We can only but wish his family all the strength during this occasion. A very painful blow to them. He had recently just been appointed as ambassador there just over a year ago, and we were confident he was going to continue to do his hard work and that he was already playing a useful role in promoting South African-French relations. Earlier this year, he had hosted the Deputy President, Porte Maillot, and South African investors in France, bilateral trade and investment programs. So we were confident he was actually going to do quite a good job and try to raise the South African flag and so forth. And I think really it is a painful loss. And I think really one must feel a lot of sympathies for the family. This is a very difficult moment for them. And one could have wished that his final chapter could have been different than this one. And I think it just really, it's a humbling, it's a sobering moment to somebody who is really hardworking and really played to the best of his talents and his abilities a role in a democratic South Africa over many, many years, despite at that stage him being one of the youngest MPs when he came to Parliament.
Yeah. Having covered him for some time, Matthew Parks, I would never have connected him to the unions, or should I say to the Trade Union Federation. Looking back now at what is being said about him, he actually was a shop steward of FAO. That means that he was indeed a member of COSATU at some point. Talk to us about his union days. What do you remember?
Yeah, no, look, that's often one of the unknown secrets. Even ourselves, probably, we also get surprised at times when we meet members of Parliament who will tell you that when they were young, like, the late Mthethwa was, that they had been part of a union. So that was when he was still a very, very young man, before 1994 in KwaZulu-Natal in Pangani, when he'd been part of FAO. And that's quite an interesting thing because, the trade union movement provided almost a learning school for a lot of young activists to get in touch with working class issues, to understand how to organize people, to understand what are the bread and butter challenges facing workers, facing their families, communities. It is a wonderful way to get in touch with people in a broader society and to be part of the liberation movement. Because also at that stage, the liberation movement was banned. So often the only kind of legal way for young activists to play a role without fear of being murdered or arrested, etc., was through the trade union movement. And FAO itself has a very proud history in the liberation movement, even predating its launch as FAO, but even the Food and Canning Workers Union. So it's a very rich trade union. So that also would speak to his very firm grasp of political education. In recent years, he had been heading the ANC's political education school before he went to France. And he was someone who was very kind of articulate on politics, on ideology, on philosophy, the history of the struggle, the history of working class issues, and so forth. And it speaks sense to somebody who grew up in FAO and grew up in the trade union movement, because those are kind of the cutting edge of the liberation movement at that time. So
Yeah.
it's often we don't know that. Often there's many people you'll not know at some stage played a role in the liberation, in the trade union movement. But it was a useful school as well for him when you would go to parliament and have to debate with members of parliament from other political parties, because in the trade union movement, you must go and fight with employers, you must convince your own workers of your issues, and you must be seen to deliver, because workers are naturally impatient and want you to be held accountable.
Yeah. Matthew Parks, thank you very much for your time this evening.